people are outside more. I might pass my neighbors and actually say hi to them. Like, you're just less rushed all around. And I think we need to start asking ourselves, like, what do we want to keep from this moment? Like, what kind of things do we want to retain and continue when life does swing back? Because we have an opportunity to really change that literally on the global scale. Every single person right now is in their home.
Hello, and welcome to the Culture and Legacy Podcast, where we are holding candid conversations talking about life behind the scenes as entrepreneurs. Today, we have Amanda Horvath with us, who's an entrepreneur whose business was taking off. She was landing dream clients, but the reality wasn't as exciting as she thought it was, as she was trading time for money. Now, her business has transformed to having an online presence where she's coaching and training. She has a YouTube channel and is killing it. And so today we're going to talk to her about what her life looked like then and what it looks like now that she has the time to do the things that make her happy, leading her towards her goals, and still being able to grow and have her own business. What's going on, Amanda?
Excited to be here, having human interaction during this quarantine time.
I hear that. How's it been? How's it been being locked in? Or
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides of it, really. It's like on one side, we are more slower. We're not doing as much. We're able to relax and kind of breathe and kind of reflect upon what's going on. And then on the other side, it's like, okay, what's going to happen in the world? Do we need to be, it's like the two fear sides. It's like total like happiness and then fear. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's people that are, I don't want to say they're completely blowing out of proportion, but there's people that are like freaking out. We need all the toilet paper. And then there's other people that are like, I mean, I got running water. I have food. Like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. It's all good.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, it's reality. We're locked in. And so this is cool that technology can bring us together like this.
So true. So true. Excited to be here today.
So cool. So tell us a little bit about what you do. What does life look like for Amanda Horvath as far as your business?
Totally. So for 6 years, I ran a video marketing company where I was really working with clients, and my schedule was kind of run by clients to a certain extent. Like, we started business thinking, oh, I'm going to be in charge of my own schedule. And then when you start doing client work, you realize that you have 100 little bosses instead of having one, right?
Working 80 hours to avoid working 40 hours.
Exactly. And it's like this kind of balancing act of drawing boundaries and learning how to draw those boundaries and putting things in contracts. And it can become a little bit confined. Like, you feel trapped to a certain extent within your own business that you created for yourself. So that's where I was personally. And at the time, what was really happening for me was that I was working with clients. I loved what I did, but there were elements of it that weren't as fun. And one of those elements was that I would create videos for businesses, and then that video wouldn't actually do anything for the business. And I know you're big into this as well, in terms of how do we actually get businesses results when it comes to video. And it was a little bit frustrating to me because over and over again, as I created these videos for businesses, they would almost end up on a digital shelf and no one would see it. And so I kept asking myself, okay, how can we really make video work? And as I continued testing tons of different videos, what I found out was that simple video converts higher than any other kind of video. And so I realized that I didn't want to be constantly creating simple videos for business owners, and they didn't need to be paying me thousands of dollars to create those simple videos. So I empowered them to do it on their own. So last year in April, I decided, you know what? I am stopping my production company. I am no longer saying yes to jobs, and I'm going to focus 100% of my effort on getting to know what the business owners need in order to truly create their own content in a sustainable fashion. So that's what my life looks like now. I guess the day-to-day life, because this is really what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Is me waking up in the morning, going to the gym try to do it every morning, coming home, plug it in on my laptop. Sometimes I go to the office, which is at my sister's house. Sometimes I work from home. And I am primarily working on how to create trainings that make business owners um, be able to get results for themselves.
Yeah. I guess what's cool about that is, there is the idea of I need to take business into my hands and I have to be there and I have to be there and I have to be there to, to make the money, to make the relationships. And you've essentially, I guess, established, what's cool too is like none of this stuff is completely new. It's just a matter of adapting it to the way that works for you, your personal life, and your relationships and your community, so that ultimately you feel better about yourself and also the service that you're providing your customers or clients.
Absolutely. And I think that it's such an interesting point right here to be sitting where we are today, because I think that this is the first time in human history that every single business is being forced to go online.
Yeah, that's
If
real.
you really think about that. And it's so last year I had the opportunity to pivot my business to go online and continue doing what I love just online in a different capacity. And now I
Hmm.
think a ton of people are starting to think, okay, how can I pivot and do the same thing?
Hmm. Yeah. So how would you say that, I guess, as far as like your personal life, kind of looking at how it was then when you're trading time for money, can you tell us a little bit about what your life looked like then, like outside of business, and then how it's looking like now that you're not trading your time for money as much, if any?
Totally. So when I was running the business full time, I it ran my life. Like a lot of my schedule was related to clients and plugging things in and going out on shoots and spending hours and hours in front of the computer editing. And then in the evenings, it would be, for example, at the time my I was dating someone else and not
Okay.
my current boyfriend. And he would always complain that I was like working all the time. And
Hmm.
it was kind of the reality. I was working all the time. And now, as I've been able to free up time and think, like, okay, what do I actually want my life to look like? I want to be able to cook dinner in the evenings and have quality time with my boyfriend and have more of a personal life and spend time going to the gym in the mornings and sometimes starting work at 10 or 11. Like, that's
Hmm.
more ideal. And maybe working till, 6 or something like that versus like getting up and hustling and making it happen and having to
Yeah.
answer client
Squeezing
calls.
it in when you can. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Do you do you remember how we met?
That is a great. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. You bought a glide cam from
I
me.
from
That's
Craigslist. Yeah.
exactly. That's so funny. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so
It's
I remember, so we did the Craigslist thing. I met, I checked it out. So I didn't know what I was doing, and I came over to your apartment to buy this thing, and you were working on your first YouTube video because you have your YouTube channel, and you were kind of, I guess, in that part of frustration of like, time for money, and I need to do something different. I guess that's when you really started creating an online presence. And so I remember, I don't know when this video was, or I don't even remember what the topic was, but there was one thing that you mentioned in one of your videos that really stuck out to me. And I was like, this is what Amanda Horvath is really all about, and why she's doing what she's doing. And so it's kind of personal. And so we'll see.
I cannot
I want
wait
to
to
talk
hear
about this.
this.
Okay. So in one of your videos, you were talking about how essentially you are doing all of this business things, all of this YouTube, all of this because you had a goal to be a mom, to be like a stay-at-home mom. Like you didn't want to be out here hustling and grinding. And this isn't about being a spoiled millennial to just work and work just to stay at home, but you're like, I want to be a mom. You want to be married,
Totally.
have the kids, and be there for them. And so I want you to tell me a little bit about that. I guess that mentality of creating something to allow you to live the life that you want to live.
Absolutely. So it really started as I at the end of 2018 is when it really clicked hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
So the entire time from the day one of starting my business, I always said that I wanted to create. I've always been trying to get to the side of the world where you're not trading time for money and you do have a business that works for you even when you're not there. And so for the first several years of my business, I was focused on developing that skill. But at the end of 2018, after probably 6 or 7 months of creating my YouTube channel, I sat down and talked to my CFO, and she basically said that I'm going to need to double my rates if I want to continue on at the rate that I'm going in order to
Mm.
survive and just like get by. And I was like, oh, I'm tired of hustling. I'm
Yeah.
tired of not getting to where I want to be. And I had just turned, so that was 2018. So I would have been 26 or
6. Yeah.
27 or something like that. So I was getting into kind of the later, I think 27, and I was realizing like, okay, I'm 27. I only have really 3 years left in my goal to a certain extent. I've been doing this for 6 years and I'm no closer to my goal of being able to be a stay-at-home mom while continuing my career forward and not having to put that pressure on my significant other to like really provide that for me. And so I realized that I needed to make a significant change in order to do that. So, yeah, it's my big why. It pushes me a lot faster, I think, than kind of my counterpart male friends, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like there is a little bit of a ticking clock, even if you're a young female. Like, I'm not looking to have kids anytime soon. I, you know, I have some
We don't have to
time.
have that conversation yet.
But I yeah, exactly. But I need to be prepping for it
Mm-hmm.
now in order to make that life possible for me later. And so
Mm.
that's really what made the ultimate shift for me to jump off the cliff, essentially.
Yeah. So you kind of just mentioned this, and you mentioned this on a few of your YouTube videos as well, of you know kind of paving the way or even looking up to other women entrepreneurs. And you've mentioned how when you're in conferences or networking events, and it's a room full of men in suits, and then you're here and you have to kind of puff your chest up a little bit to
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 play
show
the
that you're the
game.
expert in the room. Yeah. So I guess
Right.
why, as a man, and talking to other men and even other women entrepreneurs that are in this same place, like what is it that, I guess, setting these goals and striving for these things to allow that to empower you and not necessarily bring you down?
Absolutely. So I think honestly what's interesting is that it's culturally ingrained in us
Mm-hmm.
that, and I talk about this all the time, and I'm trying to put my finger on exactly what it is, and it's really challenging to verbalize, but it's like I think minorities and women actually deal with women are a minority, right? To a certain
Mm-hmm.
extent. And if you're a female and a minority, it's like extra for
Yeah.
you. But there's this element of we don't have as much role models out there that have done what we are maybe thinking could be possible. Like, what does it look like to run a super badass company that's making millions of dollars while still staying at home with your
Mm-hmm.
kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is a new thing that has not been around. So there's not a ton of women that are modeling that. The women that have kind of been able to do it up until this point don't have kids. They have like stepkids. So like
Mm-hmm.
Marie Forleo and Amy Porterfield. And so it's kind of a new thing that a lot of people aren't talking about. And I think that it's interesting because a lot of young females, we need to start acting on it sooner than later, um, and recognize that it's going to look different. So when I go into a networking event and I am discounted or something like that happens, I'm still working through it, to be honest, of like, how do I channel that energy for positivity versus like getting triggered by it or anything like that. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
a process. So I feel like I didn't really answer the question, but it's out there. I'm not totally sure how to put my finger on it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's big because it's showing that that model hasn't been created. And you know, you are essentially fighting an uphill battle. And there's a show that I used to watch with uh Kerry Washington, and what was the show? She was like a lawyer. She was a fixer. I don't know, but anyway, she's a black female, and she would talk about
Oh,
how
Scandal.
Scandal. Yes, yeah,
I
yeah.
freaking loved Scandal. Yes.
I did too. I don't admit it. I don't watch it anymore, or I had to stop because it got a little
It
risque.
got
But
dark.
it did.
It
It
got
did.
dark.
It got
I had
dark
to
very
stop
quick.
too.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't do it. But anyway, so she was like talking with her dad, who is like a very bad guy, and she was talking about her upbringing and how her dad would always tell her that you have to fight twice as hard just to get to get to half the place that everybody else is. And I think that it can be kind of discouraging, but it's also like, if I really want to be a mom and have this business that's growing, like, I do have to work harder, and not just because you're a female or because you're African American, or one of these other quote unquote minorities, but it's because if this is the life that I want to live, then I need to do whatever it takes to get and have that life I've that I want to work for.
Yeah, and what's interesting about it is also learning to let go of the hustle mentality
Yeah,
and
that's big.
as especially as a female, right? It's like, okay, if you really analyze masculine and feminine energy is subtle and you're
Hmm.
not hustling and making it happen and whatnot. And that's one of the things that I think is so beautiful about video is that I've kind of learned to allow for my work to speak for itself so that I'm not necessarily having to stand up and put my foot down and say, all right, this is going to happen. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it starts to change people's perception from another viewpoint because, as you know as well, there's something magical that happens when you sit down in front of a camera and you start talking. It's like pseudo celebrity status, and you
Hmm.
get to kind of feed off of that. And so it's really more of a subtle power move rather than like the hustle culture.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like, can we effortlessly make our way to success? Does it
Hmm.
need to be this grit and grind kind of mentality? That's one of the things that I've been like working through and finding
Hmm.
that balance.
Yeah. And so let's talk to the entrepreneur that's kind of in this place of like, I'm slaving in my own business, right? Or maybe they're working a full-time job and coming home just to hustle, right? Like, you're working 9 to 5 and then you're working 5 to 9. And it's like, this isn't the I don't want this, and there seems to be no way of kind of getting out of this. How can we speak to that person to, I guess, provide them some encouragement and even some, I guess, some practical steps, what they can do to kind of, first of all, break out of this mentality, and second of all, really make something for yourself that can help you get to the place that you want to be.
Yeah. I think one of the big things is starting to ask the question, like one of the exercises that I talk about all the time is the creating a perfect week template. Your perfect week, what does it look like?
Hmm.
And what is the flow from Sunday evening prep, cooking prep, to waking up Monday morning? What time are you waking up? Are you going to the gym? And including everything in life. And I think really kind of starting with the things that you need to keep your sanity, right? So there's things like meditation, working out. I can tell a massive difference if I'm not doing those two things. So those
Hmm.
need to be scheduled first and foremost to a certain extent. Then going in there and saying, what are the things that fulfill me in my job that I can focus on those things? And I know this is harder. It's harder when you have a corporate job. I think I take the mentality of kind of the 4-hour work week of, can you bend your job until it breaks? Can you test the limits of where you're spending your energy and try to somehow convince your boss to have a little bit more freedom? Like, I think you've done a really great job of this, of you get Fridays off. And so you
Hmm.
spend that time doing your side hustle. And
Hmm.
I so respect that because that's really challenging, but you aren't having to spend Saturday and Sunday necessarily on it. I know you do because you love it. But I think that bending your job until it breaks and asking the question, okay, what does the perfect week look like? Can I strive for this perfect week? And what do I need to do? What is the gap that will help me achieve that perfect week? Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with that, like it's not going to be handed to you. It's something that I actually need to sit down, write this thing out, and like and live by that, like I kind of joke around this with my wife. I'm like, I hate naps. Like I really I hate naps because it's like there's even if I say I'm only going to take 15 minutes, 2 hours later I wake up and it's like, I just wasted 2 hours of my life. I hate it so much. And
I'm
it's
so the same way.
and it's one of those
Yes.
things where it's like, okay, if everything that I do, for when me as as a family man, I have my wife, everything that I do, I'm keeping both of us in mind. Every decision that I make, it's for the two of us. And so, the other night, because we're quarantined and chilling, I like we
Quarantined and chillin'.
quarantine
Hashtag
and chilling,
quarantined
yeah.
and chillin'.
It's our t-shirt now. uh we played cards. We played speed at night because no TV on, no phones. We played cards because it seems super counterproductive to me to say, okay, like, dinner was great, now I need to go to the other room and hustle, because I'm hustling so that we can have the time to play cards when we want to. It's like, no, let me play cards now because these are things that are more important, even if I'm not there yet. But creating that space so that that can actually happen.
I think that's huge. I think that the only thing that we have is the moment. And
Hmm.
I personally will admit I'm a future oriented person. I live in the future. I think in the future. I have to remind myself with breath work, like, this is all you have right here, right now. How
Hmm.
do you want to spend it? Like,
Yeah.
listen to your gut. Is it telling you to hustle and get in the zone? Because there are times where it tells you to go do that. And then there's times where it tells you to go learn and be a sponge. And then there's times where it tells you to just relax, watch Netflix, play cards,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Hmm.
So I think living your life in the moment and then figuring out how you can continue living that more is huge. I love that. I want to play speed tonight. That sounds fun.
Yes. And though I won't admit it to her, she did beat me a few times. More of all that, she beat me more than I won, but I'm slightly bitter, but I can't show that to her. That's okay.
I think that really this is a great time, like to your point, to get out of our normal routines. Like last night, I stayed up till 3 in the morning, which is not something I typically do. But I
Hmm.
just feel like it's allowing, there's so much more flow in today's world with this whole coronavirus going on. And it's kind of beautiful to a certain extent. People are outside more. I might pass my neighbors and actually say hi to them. Like
Yeah.
you're just less rushed all
Hmm.
around. And I think we need to start asking ourselves, like, what do we want to keep from this moment?
Hmm.
Like, what kind of things do we want to retain and continue when life does swing back? Because we have an opportunity to really change that literally on the global scale.
Hmm.
Every single person right now is in their home, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
That's so true. My wife was telling me this morning that she was reading this article, and she was saying how, now that everybody's like indoors and not driving around as much, that like the pollution levels in the air are going down, and like animals are coming out, and things are becoming more green. It's like, this is really just healing for us as humans, for the earth as a planet, and even our mindsets. Like people are being forced to rest. And I'm kind of thinking that,
Yes.
this is kind of why, not to play off COVID-19 and people that are really dealing with this and hurting, but for most people, like this, you're being forced to take a breath. And I need to do something. And I've already napped today, and now I'm wide awake, and I got to do something. I got to choose. Am I going to be intentional with my business, or am I going to be intentional with my family? Because now you have time to do both. you know? And to your point, creating
I
those habits that can do that.
It's crazy that to think just how many more people are home for dinner every night,
Yeah.
you know? People are not working as much. And if you read on Instagram stories, or if you watch people's Instagram stories right now, everyone's like, you always want a day off so that you can get all the things done that you need to get done, and then you get a day off and you don't want to do anything. And I
Uh-huh.
think that that's what we need to be doing. We need to not be doing anything to a certain extent, and really like feeling it while we can. Like my
Mm-hmm.
boyfriend and I have been talking about, okay, how can we just totally unplug during this time, even for like 3 or 4 days. That can be kind of scary in today's economy. Is like, okay, if I unplug, then I'm going to be losing. Like, this is also an opportunity for us to, like, to a certain extent, like, step up and start playing a different game, because more people are watching more content, and you can
Yeah,
start speaking your truth during this time.
absolutely.
So it's like the balancing act between the two of those
Mm-hmm.
feelings. I think what's so interesting about what's happening in the world right now is the ambiguity that exists,
Mm-hmm.
the relaxation and ultimate fear,
Mm-hmm.
right? The take to a certain, I don't want to say take advantage of the situation, because that feels bad, but like use
Optimizing
this
or
as
yeah.
a time to like step up and really make something of yourself versus relaxing. So it's interesting, the whole
Yeah.
thing.
It is. It is. And even as entrepreneurs, like we're all being challenged to like, okay, how am I going to adapt my business so that we're not going to suffer for 2 months or however this thing goes. And people are going to businesses are really going to grow out of this. People are going to make a lot of money, and people are going to like ideas are going to come out of this. And this is really the time to really implement those things. Write out your calendar, relax, spend some time with your family, and just grow. Do like be you, like you. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going in circles. So we can go on and on about
I
that. But
I
there's
love it. I love it. You're right. And I
so
think what you're doing is so powerful too with this podcast. And like we had emailed back and forth of how this is such a perfect time to start something like this, because
mhm,
people need to be talking about the realities of just chilling, to a
yeah.
certain extent, and what that looks like, and what elements of that we'd like to keep. I think it's an opportunity for us to kind of let our guards down and be like, yeah, I mean, I'm not hustling all the time, and that's okay,
hmm Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you can't hit me up to hang out or get coffee or whatever.
No
It's like
meetings.
all
Yep.
the, it's like I can't meet you, but I'm chilling, and it's
hmm
nice. It's like I told my sister, it's a world without FOMO.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. It's a world without FOMO. Yeah, that's big.
It's really interesting, and it just feels so different. So
Yeah. This is good, Amanda. This is good. It's all of these things fall into mindsets, as an entrepreneur, as family people, as even if you don't have like it's just you and your dog. Like there is a mindset that, we are choosing to take this opportunity and take advantage of it. Like you're saying, not taking advantage of it because, there are people being hurt and suffering. But
because
this
you
is
have something to share with the world,
yeah. hmm
it's like
This is
coming
big.
from a true place of genuine help and authenticity. And I think that also the culture around money is really negative in this country
Oh
to a
yeah.
certain extent. Of like, a lot of millennials have money blocks. I have
hmm
them, in terms of you feel bad for charging for things, charging what you're worth, especially in like the photo and video world, right? Like it's challenging to charge more because it's coming out of someone else's bank account and all these different things, right? It's like a
hmm
mental game. So I think that this is a moment in time where everyone's like, oh, it's not good to charge or make money. But at the same time, it's like, if you have a valuable service to offer people and you can provide a better service by charging, then it
hmm
is time to charge and have
Yeah.
them invest in themselves and step up. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people are being triggered by that to a certain extent. And I think that that's something for us to look at too, is our money spending habits. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be
And
real.
saving.
How
Yeah.
expensive was it to prep for Corona?
Yeah. Seriously. Seriously.
Everyone spent so much more money than they wanted to spend.
hmm
So I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just interesting.
Yeah. No, that's big. What is what is our spending habits? What are our saving habits? What is our, income habits? A lot of people have lost a lot of jobs, and it's unfortunate. There's nothing really we can do out of that. But this is
I
the
think just
time to,
talk about it,
yeah, yeah,
like be open and honest about real conversations about money. We need to bring these conversations out of the dark, which is what's amazing about your podcast, is
hmm
like getting people that are hustling, that have a face, that look perfect on the internet, that to talk about the real things that are going on behind the scenes.
yeah. Because even
Beautiful.
people who are quote unquote rolling, they're suffering. You know, their families their families are suffering. I've gone to conferences and there's millionaires there, and they're like, yeah, I finally made it. But it cost me, my wife or my husband, we got divorced, and it's like, man, it's not worth it, you know? And
Yeah.
we don't talk about these things, whether it's especially things that we're struggling with, mental health is huge right now. And for some, this is a time to take a break because you can't hustle anymore. You're forced to stay in, relax, and kind of eliminate that stress that's hurting people's minds.
One
Yeah.
analogy that I heard from someone that I absolutely love, um, is that, and it's so funny, he would laugh if he heard me saying this, and my boyfriend in the other room might laugh even hearing me say it too, but it's this clear pond analogy, in that a lot of people are like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling trapped. I don't have clarity on all the things, kind of thing. And a lot of
hmm
people feel that way. Like if you're sitting in a corporate job thinking I need to change something, I just have this level of discontentment. It's because you're sitting in a stirred up muddy pond. But if you can sit still, that if you can
hmm
create space in your life and you can allow the mud to kind of settle to the bottom, to where
That's big.
that pond
Yeah.
is actually clear, and the lake or whatever it is, a lake, a pond or whatever, then you're
hmm
going to be able to see through and actually have clarity. So
Yeah.
this is the time to do
That's
that.
that's big. That's huge. And it's worth it. Like you can take a day, you can take 2 days and let that pond settle, and you're not going to be behind because everybody else is doing the same thing, you know? And so this is a time to learn yourself and be yourself and relax, chill, take a breath. I know you're huge into
And for
affirmations and all these things. Like, take a time, encourage yourself, encourage other people. Yeah, that's big.
and for us to decide that we want this to continue afterwards too,
hmm Yeah, that's true.
you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah. So if there's one piece of advice that you could share to people listening who are hustling to the point of exhaustion and are just hurting themselves and their relationships and their community, what would you tell us?
I would say find a meditation practice, and that's so triggering for a lot of people. Like everyone's like, "Ah, I do that already." And I would
hmm
say it doesn't have to look like what you think it has to look like. If you're currently struggling to have a meditation practice, it doesn't have to be you sitting there still. It could be intentionally breathing while driving and not listening to music.
hmm
Driving down the road.
What? Don't listen to music?
And I always talk to people, like I always tell people about box breathing, which is 4 breaths in, hold at the top for 4 breaths out, hold at the bottom for 4, and just repeat that. And you can do that when you're cooking. You can do that when you're, um, even at your computer working. If you find anxiety is popping up and you feel like you need to be doing something, actually sit with it, breathe through it. I think that you can recognize that we can actually move through life in a more peaceful way in
Mm,
everyday life, even when you are hustling, and it's like learn how to kind of just maintain that level. And I think this is a good opportunity to do that. So box breathing, use box breathing. That'd be my number one tip.
yeah, I like it. That's good. So, last question I want to ask you: what is the legacy that you want to leave?
Ooh, legacy that I want to leave. I want to heal the trauma that has been passed down from generation to generation in the female lineage of my family. I would
Mm,
say, I think a lot of, and then empower the next generation to come into this world without that to a certain extent, and be able to fully embody whatever that looks like. I think that my generation, in terms of the females, is going to be really setting the stage for the next generation. I always say that I wouldn't want to be a female in any other society, like any other age, except for right now. But the only place that it'll be better is the future, in my opinion. So I think that that's really the legacy that I want to leave, is carve the path that is the flow and hustle kind of balance between the two, to show what's possible, that you can be a mom and have a career that's awesome or whatever, and be that role model for the next generation.
Yeah, very cool. And I see that in you. I see that foundation growing, and you're making those steps to get to that place. And it's cool to see that what was just a Craigslist transaction, and to see you
everything
there,
happens
and then
for a reason.
it does. I still
Do you
have
still
that
use it, the glide cam?
I do. Yeah, it's great. I enjoy it a lot.
I love it. It makes me happy whenever I think about where it is. I'm like, and that was such a big moment for me to get rid of the glide cam to a certain extent, because it was like, that's like an element of like, it's more cinematic, it's a higher level that I was giving up for clients to a certain extent, and giving to you, you know, passing on the
what an
cool
honor
effects.
Yeah, that's very cool. So Amanda, tell us where, if anybody wants to connect with you or to watch you on YouTube, how can people find you?
Really, the best way to find me is, I would say, join my newsletter. And I know that people, you know, that's not the best call to action to a certain extent, but I really try to share my heart every single week on my newsletter, and talk about the real things that are happening behind the scenes, and giving you guys an inside look. And that is the only place that you can really get that. I try to be as authentic as possible on my YouTube channel, but I'm also very much focused on giving and providing value. So my personal side doesn't really slide in there as much. And then I would say the second thing is, follow me on Instagram, because I love Instagram stories. I love connecting with people in my DMs, and just having real conversations with real people, and empowering them to kind of step out of their shell and make it happen. So at AH Visions on Instagram. And then my website is just amandahorvath.com.
Yeah, very cool. I'm part of that newsletter, and she drops gems every single week. It's good things, and it's not like a whole blog. Like, it's literally there's bullet points, and it's like, okay, cool, this is good. I'm gonna apply this to my life this week. Yeah, it's good. I appreciate that. Cool. Well, thank you, Amanda, for joining me today in the Culture and Legacy podcast. I hope that if people are listening, that you really get something out of this. Take the steps now to create the life that you want to live. Today, they'll be worth it tomorrow. Cool. Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you.